Thanks, Jessica. Thanks, everyone, for coming. I've got my script here, and I've got it on the mobile. So this is my belt, and these are my suspenders. Hopefully, I won't screw it up. So my name's David Eddy, CEO of Vancouver Native Housing Society. Before I begin with our story, I just want to acknowledge that we're gratefully here on the traditional unceded territory of the Songhees and Esquimalt peoples. Vancouver Native Housing Society was established in 1984. We currently have 19 buildings in Vancouver with a couple more in the hopper. So we're pretty busy and really grateful that we've had this opportunity. We also house approximately 8% of the urban Indigenous population in Vancouver. We're run by an all-Indigenous board of directors, at least one of whom is here today. Kimberly, you want to give a wave? She does so reluctantly. We also want to acknowledge Van City, which has been a great partner of ours for the last, since 2002, when we moved our money out of CIBC to Van City. Like many folks in the sector, I came to it through somewhat of a circuitous route. I was actually looking for safe, affordable housing. I'd been laid off from a well-paying job. I was just getting involved in an acrimonious divorce and a custody fight. And so I needed to find a safe, affordable, good quality place to live. And I found that in a housing co-op in Vancouver, a 2-bedroom co-op for myself and my son. So shortly after arriving there, I got a job as the maintenance coordinator in the co-op. And from there, over the years, I developed other relationships with social housing providers. And here I am 35 years later. So moving into the co-op, no pun intended, was probably the best move I ever made. So VNHS has always been known as an aggressive housing agency in terms of developing housing projects, taking on projects. In the beginning, in the heyday of social housing in Canada, say the mid-'80s to the mid-'90s, when Canada had a reputation as a leader in the Western world in developing social housing, our first 10 years, we brought 11 projects on stream. All that came to a grinding halt back in for us it was 1994 when our last family project opened. And it took another 6 years before we got a new project when BC Housing came out with a new housing program. So around 2008, through a board of directors generated strategic planning session, we came up with 4 goals. And in efforts to transform the organization, we came up with 4 strategic goals that we wanted to accomplish. And those goals were to acquire more housing, to prepare for the end of operating agreements, which many here know what that's all about, to create organizational excellence, and to engage in social enterprise. So while thinking about those goals and how we might incorporate all of them in what we do every day, we realized that the positive completion of one of them, engaging in social enterprise, could incorporate those 4 goals into one project. And in 2012, we opened our first such project, Squatch Eyes Lodge Residence and Gallery. And the model was self-sustaining, and it's been running for nearly 7 years. And in that time, we've put back, through the profits of the hotel and gallery, $1.2 million to subsidize 24 artists in residence, 24 Indigenous artists in residence on 3 years tenancies. The model has gained international acclaim. It's gained attention, acclaim, and admiration. In fact, in last August, we got an email from Time Magazine in New York saying they'd created a list of the 100 greatest places in the world in 2018, and they named our lodge gallery in residence in that group, the only project in Canada and only one of 6 in North America. So this is a portable, scalable model, so it can be taken anywhere where there's a significant Indigenous population, any large city in Canada or North America, and in fact in the world. We're currently in discussions with a number of people in Winnipeg, in Ottawa, in Whitehorse, in Sydney, Australia, and just as recently as yesterday in Nanaimo. So it's caught people's attention. So it's difficult to do these things without partnerships, and it's really difficult to express how much value there is in good partnerships. I mentioned Van City. We have partnerships with BC Housing, with the City of Vancouver, with Metro Vancouver Housing Corporation, and also with Broadway Youth Resource Centre. So those are essential in what we do. And back probably in 2005, we decided to approach some of these people, namely Metro Vancouver Housing Corp and BC Housing, to see if they had any properties that no longer really fit into their mandate, and could we take them on to operate and manage. And we took on about 4, so by 2011 we had 16 projects. Our 18th building, we call it Quiescote, and that name was given to us by Chief Ian Campbell of the Squamish Nation, and Quiescote means finding one's power. And that's relation to the fact that this 100-unit building also had attached to it a 20,000 square foot youth center operated by our partners Broadway Youth, and 30 of those youth would be housed in the 100-unit building. So we also work with Vancouver Housing Society and their development branch, and City of Vancouver. We're working on some new developments, partnering with condo developers. And we're also looking at working with the City of Vancouver on a redevelopment through a portfolio approach. We have 10 buildings in Grandview Woodland area that have, the area has just gone under a new official community plan, and there's large opportunities for greatly increasing density. But we want to do this in a thoughtful manner and such that we would not have to displace tenants, which is a big problem in redevelopment for any of you who've done that. So we want to try and have a property ready to go when we redevelop another one. While the creation of new housing remains our primary focus, we recognize the importance to our residents of doing this through a holistic lens by celebrating Indigenous art, culture, heritage, spirituality. The purpose of this rationale, to weave artistic, cultural, and spiritual themes into the bricks and mortar of housing, grew from a recognition of the values those qualities bring to the community. It's not just about housing. It's also about healing. It's about righting past wrongs, and it's about reconciliation. That's how we look at it. So stepping outside of the typical approach to buildings, we've taken on other projects. Most of the time they're through grants from Canadian Heritage or other governmental organizations. Over the last 10 years, we've done this to establish, celebrate, and inculcate Indigenous culture and values into our everyday practice. So in 2008, we developed a concept we call community building through the transformative power of art. In 2009, we developed a video documentary called Looking Forward, Looking Back. That's the logo, which has also morphed into the logo of our hotel. So that was a look at the lives of Indigenous artists in the downtown east side in Vancouver. In 2010, we created the Orwell mural, the largest mural in Western Canada. That's what we say. Nobody sued us, and it was 2010 when we created it, so we think it's probably true. It's 6 stories high, so 65 feet high by 120 feet deep. It's an all-Indigenous. It's called Through the Eye of the Raven. You see the raven, the flash of light coming down from the raven's eye, looking at some of the nasty bits in the downtown east side. That's the Balmoral Hotel. It was closed last year or this year by the City of Vancouver. But it looks on to the Coast Salish canoe, harkening back to a pre-contact time when life was good for Indigenous people here on the West Coast. They were sheltered in long houses. They had lots of food, salmon, just unbelievable amounts, berries, that sort of thing. So we're looking and saying we can come back to that time again. And then you have there were 4 Indigenous artists on the wall here, and each of them took part in this drawing. Actually, that's not the whole mural. That serpent at the top, there's another head to that serpent. That's known as the Sisiutl, twin-headed mythological serpent. So lots of stuff there. Anybody wants to talk about it later, I'm happy to do it. 2012, we opened Squatch Eyes Lodge, our most iconic and awarded structure, identified by the 40-foot Dreamweaver pole. This is the pole. We rolled it out. We built 2 Canadian Tire canvas tents over these 40-foot long poles, brought in generators and lights, and carved it at Britannia Senior Secondary High School. And that's us rolling it out on the day we're going to mount it. So we believe we've created a model with our concepts of good quality coupled with good quality social housing, which is a universally accepted determinant of health. And we believe we've created a successful approach that will serve to counter many of the negative effects that Indigenous peoples have suffered here since European contact. Recognizing that this is by no means a panacea for all the wrongs committed against Indigenous peoples over the last 400 years, we nevertheless believe it is a positive step. We are aware that we're not alone in trying to right past wrongs. There are others working towards the same goals. Some of them you'll hear from today. And we know we have momentum on our side to continue to move the social and affordable housing agenda forward. It is our intent to continue with this goal by applying the theme of reconciliation and adhering to and following the principles set out in the calls to action as articulated in the Truth and Reconciliation Report delivered in 2015. Thanks for listening to our story.